All right, everybody, welcome to a special edition of Brazil Crypto Report. We're coming to you from ETH Denver, which is one of the most important conferences in Ethereum and in crypto more generally. It's one of the agenda-setting conferences for the year, so we're really excited to be here, really excited to have a good Brazil representation. So my name is Aaron Stanley. I'm the founder of Brazil Crypto Report, and we've got a nice roundtable of some craquies here from Brazil who've made the trip. So we have Thiago from Pansy, we have Bruno from Cartesi, and we have João from Fuse Capital. So we'll do a quick round of intros here, and then we're going to dive into just what's going on this week and what we're watching. Thiago, let's kick it over to you to start.
Yeah, my name is Thiago. I'm VP of Growth of Mondance Labs, which is the dev code behind Tensi. Tensi is an app chain infrastructure protocol, and our main product is a dApp on which you connect your wallet. You give some parameters. Is it going to be a EVM app chain? Is it going to be a Substrate app chain, or even a custom template you can deploy as well? And you give these parameters. You set the name of your token, the amount of decimals, the gas fee policy, and some stuff like that. And then it's pretty much like a software installing wizard. So you give these parameters, it's a codeless solution, click, and boom. We set up a call, we set up a chain, spin up a chain, running, producing blocks, already integrate with integrations to RPC endpoints, block explorers, indexers, all this tooling already built in. And yeah, we just launched our testnet a few months ago. We're seeing a lot of traction. It's been exciting times.
Very cool, very cool. And Bruno, let's go over to you. Why don't you tell us about Cartesi?
Of course, my name is Bruno, ecosystem growth lead of Cartesi. Cartesi is a modular execution layer built on architecture that is also an app chain, which is an application-specific rollup. It also requires convenience to be launched. So nowadays you can easily build, test, and launch your own application using any programming language that you want, with libraries, etc. Because our virtual machine basically is a RISC-V basically virtual machine that puts an entire Linux OS. So you have we expand a lot the expressiveness of what you can do in smart contracts. You are free from limitations on code choice and as well in libraries. So you have the whole OS to play with, and using that, you can deploy your application on top of VM networks, mainly on the Ethereum ecosystem. And we are expanding, of course, since Cartesi is naturally born for modularity, we're expanding that, integrating with other protocols that will give flexibility on features and capabilities for infrastructure for developers. Right? And all of that, of course, you can deploy with a few clicks of a button using the Sonoro, right? Convenience layer, which nowadays runs a Cartesi CLI command and clicks on the web browser. So we are very excited to be here. I think an excellent event so far, and I'm really looking forward to have a chat with you guys.
So João, let's kick it over to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Aaron. It's always a pleasure. So I'm João. I'm one of the founders of Fuse Capital. We are one of the main VCs investing in the Web3 space down in Latam. And I'm also heading BRX, which is our initiative to create, in-house protocols to manage this new ecosystem that's being created around tokenized assets. So we are exploring the software layer, where we create the software and the applications where you can use these tokenized assets, interacting with the real world assets that are behind them. So that's something that we're really excited about, and it's something that we've been working really hard during the last year to have these protocols out. We're deploying this as a private app chain in Tensi, so nice partnership here with Thiago. And RWA is what we've been digging a little bit deeper in and talking a lot about here in ETH Denver. So
very cool, very cool. And so João, I think the last time you came on my podcast here, last time I interviewed you was, I think you were actually at ETH Denver last year, or right around that time last year. And hoping you could maybe give us some context just around maybe what were your big takeaways from that event, and maybe what did you see kind of throughout the rest? How did that ETH Denver set the agenda for the rest of the year, as far as maybe like new connections or new ideas or just new how did that kind of guide your thinking and your investment theses over the remainder of the year?
Yeah, so last year was my first ETH Denver, so it was like a brand new experience, and this event is an experience, right? I think it's interesting for everyone to come here and understand the atmosphere. Something that was really hot last year and developed along the year was the kind of the ZK part of the ecosystem. I think most of the events that we had was very technical on the ZK sync part. And this year it's weird because you can feel kind of a tangible excitement in the air. Everyone is more, bullish. It's been happening in the market, so it's understandable. And we've seen a lot of events around, like modular blockchains. DePIN has been a subject that's been really in hype, and RWAs. I think with the past year and the development of tokenized treasury and the increase in TVL of tokenized treasury, people have really started paying attention to RWAs. And for us as Brazilians, and with what's been happening in Brazil with the central bank, right, with Drex and right the biggest RWA you can tokenize, it's really exciting to see like this convergence between mindsets of people abroad and of what we've been doing in Brazil. Just to wrap it up, like the talks that we've been having with people here is people are still not aware of this opportunity that the timing is presenting in Brazil. Like we're in a very special place and time where trillion-dollar industries will be disrupted by this technology, and people are still not taking full advantage of that, right? So has been kind of my takeaway. It's been still a short time, but I think that's the direction that we're feeling this year.
Cool. And then Bruno, let's go over to you. Why don't you tell us about your previous ETH Denver experiences, and what have you maybe learned from those that you've carried over into this year?
That's funny. It's actually my first ETH Denver.
Oh,
yeah.
baptism by fire.
And I totally agree with João. It's an event that is a must attend. You must feel the atmosphere and everything that is around. And I totally resonate with João as well on in this moment that we are in the market. I would say that we are finally planting the seeds on infrastructure point of view to really allow disruptive use case to come on board. Right? We are unlocking constraints that you have in blockchain, computational capacity, data storage capacity, costs of transactions. All of that is coming, I would say, being addressed by modularity in some aspects. And amazing use case will come together, right? RWA is an amazing use case. And what I'm most bullish on that one is people don't realize yet that you are adding a layer of programmability on assets that in general are sitting on desks and having very limited, I would say, value squeeze from that. You can add layers and layers of programmability on that, interconnect different products in a ways that we weren't capable to do before. And moreover, with this disruptive technology, you allow mid-size and lower size players to come and play in the markets that used to be exclusive from big players, right? And that is where I would say Brazil is sitting in a very prominent position with the leadership of the Bacen and the CVM taking a step forward, not only with the CDBC, but also with the old regulation that we are allowed to play with the sandbox, etc. So definitely a lot of things will happen. And in the ETH Denver itself, modularity is something that I'm hearing quite often. Although I was talking with Thiago today early in the morning that modularity is easier said than done, right? To build protocols that are interconnect and still keep the same secure guarantees that is so important in blockchain, it's a task, it's a hard task, right? It requires a lot of tough engineering, a tough process, and this industry started to go through this process. And in point of view of Cartesi, since our modular execution, our VM has this capability to unlock a whole operational system for programming, it brings a much easier path for these 25 millions of developers on the mainstream to go and start developing things on Web3, right? And we're super excited to see that happening, because with more developers, with less constraints on computation and data storage, new use case will be unlocked, like AI, DePIN, gaming, and cross-product like intelligent DeFi, Right? So, and those builders will come, and each 10,000 builders you get 1 million users, as Thiago mentioned early in the morning. So I'm think we're planting the seeds to start envision mass adoption of blockchain. Right? We're still not there yet, but I'm very bullish on it.
And one of the things I like about coming to ETH Denver is, even though I'm not really a technical person, and a lot of these terms, like I know what they mean, but I don't actually know what they mean, right? Because I've never built one of them or used one of them before. But I like the fact that it draws in such like a highly like technical, like builder focused audience. And this isn't like your crypto tourist conference, right? Like I was coming here in my Uber, and like, and of course, like the Uber driver, he's had enough crypto people in his car this week where he's like, oh, you must be here for the crypto conference. I'm like, yep. And he starts asking me, like what coins to buy and all this kind of stuff, which I guess is a bullish sign, right? If the Uber drivers are asking you what to invest in. But he was kind of asking like, oh, like what type of people are going to this? Is this like a good place? Like I could go and like learn about blockchain or whatever. I was like, well, you don't really know the basics. Like you're going to be pretty lost here. Right? Like this is definitely like not your like beginners conference. So, but maybe Thiago, would love to get your sort of ETH Denver history here, and maybe talk about like what's the value that you find from coming to this every year.
Sure. Yeah, that's actually my second edition. Last year I was here with João. By that time, Tessie didn't exist yet. So I had other focuses. So I was working with stablecoins and crypto payment rails and everything. So I had another focus. Right now, I think I having this whole new opportunity to be more closer to the devs. Yesterday I gave a panel, super interesting panel about. It's a mini summit actually, a Polkadot mini summit, and we invited many new projects in Polkadot to the pitch, like a 15-minute speech. So it was super cool to be closer to the devs community this year, and also participate more actively in the building week. So that was the main difference between last year and this year, and was super exciting. It's very energizing, right, to talk to devs and go to the ground and like talk to people who are actually building stuff and super cool stuff. And yeah, that's the main difference. But I'd say like that's definitely like a must go event. I mean, probably, as you guys already said, it's like a whole experience, not just an event, right? So it's crazy how this town, which is, I don't know, is maybe not a super touristic town, right? But it attracts a whole horde of like diverse projects, people from all around the world, building a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of interesting stuff. And it's just super cool because I mean it's very cold, right? So you have to go inside and you have to chat to people, and I was having breakfast today with Bruno, and we were supposed to have a meeting or talk, but when we came into the cafe, a girl approached us and started to talk about what she's building, and then we sat finally to have our coffee, and the guys in the table right near to us started talking to us about the conference. So it's really, you are really deep in the subject, right? So in blockchain, in all the discussions, we were actually discussing modularity with these guys, right? So it's super interesting how it just flows, the whole conference. This week that we are here is just passes, just flies. And it's just natural, So it's definitely a very interesting experience.
The sensation that I have that the whole city is immersed into the topic
exactly.
of blockchain, right? And in your direction, I feel here that you have a complete ecosystem, and where you feel that the relevance of this conference, because you have a massive presence of builders, you have a lot of protocols and discussions among protocols. You have the ecosystem around with marketing agencies, enablers, market makers, VCs, builders, entrepreneurs. So everyone in this melting pot, which is super interesting to be. That's why I think it's so important to be in that specific conference. And of course, with the market picking up, I would say that a conference will become more and more interesting that way.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Last year it was like a bad smell in the air.
Yeah.
But I think, this year I'm ready to have more.
You know what I feel being here is like when we're in Brazil, in Rio, when can you talk to anyone on the street about crypto, about what you're doing? And here you can just walk around, and anywhere you sit, people are just talking about and understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
You just
I
ask,
feel-
what are you building? And that's it.
That's
You
it.
start a conversation.
I just hope that the Uber guy asking for recommendations is not a top signal, right?
Yeah,
Got that.
it's too early for that, guys. But you do have, I mean, now that we are, I guess I was the last couple of weeks I've been skeptical that we're actually going into a bull market, kind of cautiously optimistic about it. But now it appears, okay, we're officially back again. But it does feel like we've got two sides of the coin now. We've got like the folks who are really focused on like building stuff and like the real kind of tech focused people, the builder focused people, heads down, like let's just build stuff and ship stuff. But then you're also starting to get, like I had more conversations yesterday about airdrop farming than I did about like any like new actual like product advances that might benefit the industry or benefit the world or anything. And it was more, the conversations were more around like, oh, what airdrops are you farming? Or like, did you get the Jupiter airdrop? Or like, did you get the, and of course, like I'm really, I don't want to say I'm bad at airdrop farming, but maybe I just don't have the, the dedication and the discipline to do it properly. Because it's more difficult than it was back in the day when you just click Uniswap once and then you get airdrop tokens. You have to, do all these things to qualify. But it does feel like you are getting like the greed spirits are coming back out again, and I've just felt that very palpably since I arrived here yesterday. I guess I don't really have a question pertaining to that, but like we just love kind of how are you guys like approaching that balance of like the building stuff versus the hey, like this is our chance to get rich again.
I think this is the best stage because people last year were kind of depressed because it's like 2 years of a bear market, 3 years, but you have that feeling of like being together. We're here together in the not a very good place, but and this stage where we're now, people are starting to get out of that and being optimistic, right? And we're not still not seeing the excesses, right? I think that's a sign of a little bit of excess because airdrop farming is it's just weird, but we're starting people to see the possibilities of like the potential of things that were built during the period where no one was believing in crypto anymore. Crypto was dead, and people are optimistic. So I think this is the best stage because for sure, like everything in economic cycles, you go through excesses, and we were in the excess of the bear market, and we're gonna go again into an excess of bull market. That's the only certainty that everyone has. And that's where we start seeing, these more crypto tourists, people, really flashing. We see the Lamborghinis and everything like that. And that's not really what I like to see, right? I like to see like these people building, things starting to work out. Institutional interest is something that's palpable also, again, a lot because of the ETF. So this stage that we are in now here in Denver is like, for me, the best stage that we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Resonating with that, I would say that the bear market is funny saying that it's the best time for you to keep focus and build, right? Because you don't have the noise of the bull run. People are actually over there building. You have much more meaningful connections. You have serious discussions about how to move forward. It's a great time to build, right? So it's on the market cycles, it's very important that projects can survive through bear market because they can build properly, right? And in the bull market comes this deficit of attention, this noise, this FOMO, and start getting difficult to get attention of people because each second you have a new stuff coming and this is the hottest thing that is happening. And from the builder's point of sight, what we are still doing is keep focusing on our vision, our mission, and start building meaningful connections and go through. And what I see on the airdrop angle, I think airdrop is an amazing tool of adoption if it's well used. I don't see nowadays that being used, I would say, magically well. Because of most of the protocols, they don't have a product that offers 10x difference from the others. So you use airdrop just to convince the guy come from A to B, but when airdrop goes away, he goes to B from A to A, right? And that is where I think good products with good product market fits with people that really understand the audience and the target audience, they can do properly airdropping and capture value from that, right? aside of that, is this noise that comes with new people coming, excited with the ecosystem and airdroppers and new beauties, and they will always be here and trying to capture whatever they can, right? And it's fun though, right?
Yeah, it does generate interest in your,
Yeah.
I guess, I'm sympathetic to the critiques of airdrops, but like it does have the impact of getting people to use your stuff, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
if I can add on that, like
Yeah.
as a builder, like that it's about to go to mainnet within a few months, like we are reading the situation, right? So we announced recently in Tansy the incentivized testnet campaign, and we probably gonna have a point system at some point. This might lead to a potential airdrop in the future. So just to give another angle in this discussion, like when you're about to go to mainnet, you have to figure out how to distribute your tokens, right? And you want to have the longest tail as possible because you want to put your tokens on the hands of, as many people as possible. So yeah, and actually airdrops are the way people do that these days, right? We used to have the token sales. It's cool. I mean, you can have a lower ticket and access a bunch of new users, new people, new token holders. But then the airdrop, like on the opposite, like you don't receive anything in return, right? So you just receive people's attention, people's effort and time. So, but the users, they don't put money on that. So that's the best way possible to spread as much as you can the tokens, right? So yeah, we are of course considering that all the new projects that are like following this model. But yeah, I mean, just to offer another angle, like it's just it might be a super interesting strategy, right, for distributing the
Oh,
tokens.
absolutely.
And-
The
and-
airdrop is
But-
sorry.
No, but I was gonna say, like, because if you take it through the Web 2 perspective and then you look it through the VC perspective, like 50% of VC money used to go to Facebook and Google just to get users, right? So this is the alternative where you bypass these big tech companies and you interact directly with the user to get them. And at the end of the day, you're paying per user, right? You have a cost of acquisition per user. So this is the cost of acquisition per user, but you're paying with a different
Exactly.
VC.
What I'm bringing here is how to use better this tool, because it's an
course.
amazing tool which connects protocols directly with the users, right? And how to use that, and of course, it's used to gather the attention for the person to taste your product and see if there is a fit on here. If it's a fit, the person will stay. But the magic is, and this efficiency on that is, how to properly understand your community, how properly understand your, I would say, archetype of users, and how to properly using this amazing
Right.
tool in a way, not only spread a long tail with people that just getting the airdrop and moving forward.
Of course, the worst thing could happen is like you make the airdrop and then the
Yeah,
guys just come
mercenary
back and dump.
capital,
you know?
mercenary capital. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
yeah.
how to avoid that,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a waste of a waste of capital. Right?
course.
We managed to go to a more efficient system where you cut off some middlemen and you connect directly protocols with end users. And this is a very nice and frictionless tool to communicate value and get attention. So how we can properly benefit from this strategy on getting that on the right hands of the people that will stay, build, and contribute with the ecosystem.
Yeah, just another 2 cents on that. Like, just to be fair, see, I arrived on last weekend, and I haven't been talking much about airdrops yet. Right? I don't know if right now in the main conference is going to be a hottest topic, but in the building arena, like no one asked me about that. So just to be fair,
This is great. It's means that
Okay.
we're the right audience.
maybe we hang out. We roll with different crowds apparently. I hang out with the shitcoin farmers, and you hang out with serious people that build real stuff, right? But well, I think we probably riff on like the airdrop thing for a while if we wanted to, but I wanted to introduce a couple more themes here. Just a couple of things that have just even come up in our conversation so far. I think one of the interesting things about ETH Denver is like it is obviously an ETH event, but they are very inclusive of like other chains. So like we're looking right across at Solana. They have a booth right across from where we're recording here. Like Near has a booth. Like Polkadot is obviously here. Like there's kind of everybody kind of comes, right? And there you kind of see this sort of this EVM versus non-EVM world, the modular versus monolithic sort of tension, or if you want to call it that, maybe it's not the right word, but sort of this differentiation, sort of in real life here, and everybody's kind of competing for the same developers or competing for the same builders. everybody's got slightly different value propositions. Some are more aligned with like the core ethos of Ethereum than others. But maybe just would love to get your thoughts on how you guys are approaching this this sort of modular versus monolithic, EVM versus non-EVM differentiation so far this week.
Yeah, so like as I mentioned, like this has been like a hot topic. I think it's very technical, right? In the end of the day, so what we're seeing is that the single purpose blockchains are something that's been very interesting, like in very good conversation, especially when we hang out with the Tensy crew, right? So, but with Ethereum, catching up again and like the price going up and activity going up, we're gonna go back to that model where in the bull market where it's totally unfeasible to do any transaction, like unless it's batched in Ethereum. So with that, these concepts of modular blockchains, they start to be more relevant, right? So what we believe is that with this approach, you're going to unlock new use cases that are not feasible through the monolithic approach. And by that, you're also going to have kind of siloed use cases. And then you start to have the need for interconnectivity between these chains, which is something that's a solution that we've seen some solutions, but I think they're still very early stage, right? So you see that if we go in this direction of the modular blockchain and in the direction of creating application-specific chains, there comes up the need of having these efficient communications in a non-centralized way, right? Because what we see today is very centralized structures for communicating between blockchains, and that increases the security risk for the entire protocol. I think Bruno touched on that. So I think, again, this is very technical. In the end of the day, when we are here in a builder conference and everyone's just like hands down building and very technical, it's relevant. But when we talk about the final user and how we see this user interacting with blockchain technology, it should be irrelevant. It should be totally irrelevant, because for this to be mainstream and for this to go to the masses, people can have the complexity of choosing a network, connecting, signing transactions, all of that. So when we talk about the end user who's actually going to use these products, they're not going to care if it's a modular blockchain. In the end, they're going to have lower fees and better cost structure and things like that. But they're just going to be interacting with the product, and in the back end, people are going to be solving these complex problems and dealing with the complexity, right? So I think, again, when we're at this type of conference and it's relevant and people are really on the technical side, it's relevant. But in the end of the day, for the user, which matters, it doesn't matter, right?
I couldn't resonate with you as well. I would say that shows how far we are from mainstream adoption, right? We are still discussing how the teaching is assembled rather than how that's being used. And I would extend that it's not only for the final user, right? Builders are still trying to sell their product about the technology they're using, not about the product and product market fit. That should be completely transparent for the very end user. But even developers, they should be concerned only with the technical requirements needed for their application or their use case. If it's a low latency that they need or massive storage, and infrastructures, they must abstract away complexities from builders to deliver to them only the protocol stack that fits with their requirement, and that's it. So everyone has mobile phones here. When we do a call, you're not concerned on how the phone handshake with the network, what is the configuration of the data flow, if it's a voice call, it's an email that you receive. That's why we have mass adoption of mobile phones. If we have to get involved in that process, we wouldn't have mass adoption of mobile phones. I can guarantee you, right? And that's what, for example, protocols like Cartesi with the modular stack, with a full agree with João, that is very difficult for a monolith infrastructure, gives the plasticity that each use cases requires in terms of requirements. So the modular comes on you, adapt conditions and requirements to deliver the right set to build it, right? So, but that modularity needs to be abstracted away. So one thing that for me will pick up from here is convenience on building. How it's easy for developers to use a protocol stack to build their product, right? And talking what you said about we are disputing the same amount of developers, I think also we as a collective should be concentrating on how we grow the pie, right? Cartesi is trying to contribute on that because since we have this RISC-V that boots an entire Linux, any program language is welcome to develop smart contracts. So you can tackle the Python group, which is a 12 million developers ecosystem. You can get the Java guys, C++, Rust, JavaScript, TypeScript, Go, you name it, right? And not only that, you can use the libraries. So you can use Python with an image recognition library. Or what girl in a hackathon, she just put an entire alpaca LLM inside our virtual machine and create a verifiable chat GPT. So that is where I think convenience and how to grow the pie and abstracting away complexities is the next step for us to really start thinking on mass adoption, to really start thinking products that has really utilities for the end users, right? So far, what we could find is only defined stablecoins. To move ahead from that and unlocking those limitations would be key.
Yeah, what I used to say about this discussion is that like no one watches Netflix because they use, I don't know, AWS or GCP, right? You just want to watch your TV show, your film, and that's it. You don't choose your broadcaster for their tech stack, right? But back to the modularity thing. So definitely modularity is one of the hottest topics here this event. So I've been to a side event promoted by Avail. They're creating a super cool DA layer. Cartesi guys also have naturally a modular architecture. They hosted also an event with Espresso team. Yesterday we had the modular day, so it's definitely like a very hot topic. And yeah, I mean relating that to Tansy, right? So Tansy, it's by definition also a modular ecosystem. Right? So Polkadot in general is a modular ecosystem. You have the consensus layer and the settlement layer that's provided with Polkadot, the layer 0, let's say, the relay chain of Polkadot. And then, yeah, like we have projects like Tansy, we are, if you want to make a parallel to your ecosystem, we can say that Tansy is a decentralized sequencer set, right? In Polkadot, it happens that it has a special name, which is collators. But essentially names apart, what it does is a decentralized and a shared way to in a way to share resources for producing blocks on behalf of the blockchains, right? And that's essentially modularity, right? So yeah, so it's been a very interesting topic. A lot of people discussing about that, not only in the events but also in fireside chats and during lunch. So definitely a hot topic, modularity.
And then,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to change the subject slightly. Going to
just finalizing that, reinforcing what João said on this modularity will bring a lot of challenges on interconnectivity, right? And we need to get a step back on that because to manage expectations, right? When you have a monolithic infrastructure where every application is in the same, I would say, block, in the same bus, it's very difficult for a modular stack to reach the same level of composability of that monolith. Right? It's the only trade-off that you're going to have on modularity. You can get close to it, but not the same. But then is the question, what are the use cases that will require this deep level of composability? Maybe financial ones. Right? But moving away from that, I would say that composability in that level might be not a strict requirement. And the gains that you will have with the modular stack on computational gains, on data storage, and other aspects will, I would say, overcome this trade-off that you have on composability. Right?
Yeah, one discussion that we were, just to add a little bit on top of that, one discussion that we were having in the breakfast today with the guys is like, okay, why we start all this modularity conversation, right? Probably to reduce costs, right? So that's how the DA layers came to be, right? To offer an alternative to the Ethereum data availability system and trying to save costs, right? But one thing that we were discussing about is like, okay, but what happens if, okay, I want to use the Ethereum settlement layer and then, I don't know, any DA layer, right? What happens if that goes down? So that means that I need to have two DA layers, like one as a backup, the other. So having two DA layers, is it still more cheap to build, right? So I think at some point, I would say it's a new subject-ish, right? So at some point, we're going to find a middle ground where it all balances and combines together. But yeah, it's definitely super interesting to see all these experimentations around modularity. It's super, super cool.
And I wanted to move on to another theme that we've been hearing a lot about, which is this idea of decentralized physical infrastructure, or DePIN, as it's now being called. And on one hand, on one hand, this isn't really like a new concept, right? It's just crypto people are very good at like just taking ideas that have been around for a while and just putting a new narrative on it and making it sound like it's something new, right? But I think with the emergence of AI and just some of the needs that, or some of the limitations that we've seen in some, current AI systems, and some of the needs, it's a little bit easier for us to foresee the needs in the future of like, okay, why would we need sort of a decentralized infrastructure, across some of these various services, whether it be data storage or compute or just even like broadband, Wi-Fi connection, whatever it might be. So there's definitely been quite a bit of talk about that recently, and I'm assuming, or I think there was already like a DePIN Day side event that happened, probably like half a dozen of them actually. And I know there's a lot of talks here at the main event about this as well, but would love to kind of hear, like, I mean, João, I know you guys invested in Helium. You guys have been pretty bullish on that since kind of the early days there. Maybe we'll kick this one to you first, but I mean, how are you reading this? Is there like a real movement here? Is there a real there, so to speak? Or is this maybe crypto people kind of just putting a new name on something, a new spin on something?
Yeah, I think this like DePIN for sure is a new name. People, like crypto people, like to create these acronyms, right, for things that already exist, which are great, but there is usually like a parallel in the real world. But if you think about it, like even the original crypto Bitcoin is almost like a DePIN, right? Because
yeah, well, that was my argument when I was like, well, how is it, like, isn't Bitcoin like,
exactly
fits all the criteria?
Fits all the criteria.
We would now consider to be DePIN.
What was solved by Bitcoin very efficiently, and is what people are seeing, what Helium saw and why it was super successful in the beginning, is they solved the problem of the cold start for a large capex investment, right? So if you have a project that needs a large capital investment, either you're gonna go to like public markets to raise that capital, or you're gonna go through, sharing this infrastructure with other people, creating tokens on top of it, and then you have a DePIN infrastructure like you have in Helium and things like that. But it's not a new concept. It's nothing new. What I think it was coined as DePIN, and is because the crypto space has been trying to find a narrative around AI, and that narrative has gone from the data side when AI was not LLM based, so like monetization of like private data silos, which was super interesting. So how do you track that data? How do you monetize it? How do you sell that data, right? And a crypto layer on top of that is super interesting. But with the LLM kind of model being, the winning model, people went to the infrastructure side. And then they coined DePIN, and then you have it that way, right? But like we believe in the model in Fuse, right? As you mentioned, we are big believers in Helium. What they're doing, what they did for LoRa, which is like a really small protocol where they just went crazy on it with the network. And what they're doing now with 5G. So I don't know how much you guys know. I know Bruno is the expert in telco, but in 5G, it's basically for Brazilian telcos, it's really hard to invest in the infrastructure because they need such a wide array of like transmitters. That's a huge capex. So how do you solve that? You can turn to this cold start solving model where you have rewards and you have incentives for people to grow the network with you. And that's where I think there is a real case for DePIN. To be extremely honest, I haven't gone into the AI use case for DePIN. I imagine what it is like having decentralized data centers, but I think all of these use cases that crypto creates and the narratives, like they're always very technical. And what we like to do is like take the practical side of it. Like what actually does this solve and who's going to use this? And then it creates a better perspective for you to look at it, right? Because everyone here is in love with the technology and developing new things, but in the end of the day, people need to use it and need to pay for it. So that's kind of our view on it.
Just adding to João, just for a broader concept on 5G, and that's also a beautiful story on why it's important to developing open standards, interconnectivity, allowing an open connectivity. So in 5G nowadays, a vendor must have opening interfaces to allow other vendors to interconnect. So you remove this barrier of that you have in the old telecom systems that if I'm Ericsson, I'm only interconnected with equipments of Ericsson. So that creates a huge barrier for this type of thing. Right? Nowadays, you have a guy that's bringing a new 5G equipment. He managed to get a financial incentives layer to help the funding, the launch of that equipment, and then the deployment is moved out, and this allows the smaller players to come into that system that used to be only for giants like AT&T, right? And this is a special reality in a country like Brazil, that's the size of a continent. I recall the times that I was in telecom that one base station used to cost $1 million. So imagine to cover the size of Brazil. It's an unimaginable amount of money. It's billions of dollars. So yeah, I totally resonate with João and DePIN and this financial layer, and that is a nice way to do airdrops with incentives aligned to get the proper audience to make your
Airdrops and composability, right?
exactly.
Because the financial layer on top of these assets, it's super interesting.
Exactly.
What you can develop.
Because it allows programmability on that.
Exactly.
On top of that.
And also it's closer to the day-to-day lives, right? So I mean, Helium is a very good example of that. So decentralizing the way people consume and offer internet, right? And yeah, no, I think that like the subject DePIN, I agree with you guys. Like crypto people love narratives, love names, and it's cool. We love memes as well. It's fine. But yeah, I like when things get closer to the day-to-day lives, as I said. So yeah, in Tensi we have several projects building DePIN applications, and it's actually super exciting to see. Independently on the terminology thing, the fact is that like we are seeing cool stuff emerging from this, I would say, vertical crypto. This vertical is kind of going horizontal, I'd say, as well, because like a lot of, as you said, Bitcoin, right? But it fills the criteria, so why not? But like we have other stuff that are not really physical, but are considered DePIN. For instance, we have a team in Tensi. They are building an app chain, which is pretty much like an operational system for phones that already enable a lot of Web3 components built in. It's pretty much like you have Saga Phone, Solana. They built the hardware and the software. These guys are only focusing on the software side, but like that has a very, very intimate symbiosis, let's say, with the hardware. So they kind of classify this as DePIN. There's also another cool project that offers decentralized computing power for AI models, for architecture, rendering, this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's also like very, very attached to physical world. So these guys are super interesting project as well. So yeah, I just like to see things coming, closer to the real world.
Yeah, I feel like the ones that make most intuitive sense to me, these DePIN projects are, I would say, these like decentralized compute networks or decentralized GPU networks, because I think like it's kind of obvious right now that, okay, the world is producing ever more data, and we're needing more and more compute power to be able to produce all these generative AI images and videos that you can just spin up. Anybody can just spin these things up on their phone now with like no effort, really. There's no barrier to entry here. But there is a finite like cap or a scalability limit on just like GPU chip manufacturing, semiconductor manufacturing, right? So they can't make Taiwan can't make more semiconductors, just like they can't just flip a switch and start doubling their production capacity, right? Whereas like with AI, generative AI, we basically, I mean, how much is it? It's growing just the last year. It's been insane. So I think the question becomes then, okay, if we can't just like double our chip production capacity overnight, but how do we go toward like maximizing use of the chips that we already have, which is making sure that chips that are dormant or maybe not being fully utilized are being utilized to maximum efficiency? And how do we incentivize people that, like the guy who's playing video games, like when he's not playing his game, how can he use his GPU to, render AI graphics or whatever? And my day job, I work at Filecoin Foundation, and we kind of have the same issue as well, where it's the basic thesis is just like, look, like the amount of data that's being produced in the world now is just growing exponentially, and there's no way that Microsoft or Google or AWS can build data centers fast enough to store all this stuff that's being produced, right? Like you can't just snap your finger and spin up a data center, right? So anyway, we'd love to kind of as we kind of wrap up the conversation, would love to get any other thoughts on, or I guess one other thought from me, and I'll turn it back to you guys. I think one thing we've learned with Filecoin is that, like, in order for this stuff to actually work or like to be adopted, the service really has to be like on par or better than like the existing Web 2 alternative, right? To convince somebody like, hey, you should use, instead of using, buying your own sort of warehouse of like NVIDIA chips, you should just use this decentralized network of NVIDIA GPUs that somehow uses tokens, and you don't really understand how it works, but whatever. Like, to get to actually to the point where people are going to be using that, and using that with confidence in like enterprise instances where they have clients that they need to deliver services to and things of that nature. It's a tough proposition, like especially in the early days, and it's something that every early adopter of any new technology is going to encounter, right? But anyway, so just a few thoughts on that from my end, but would love to see this back into you guys, turn it over back to you guys. What do you guys, any hot takes on how this stuff actually gets adopted here?
I think like when you say like it needs to be on par or a little bit better to create adoption, like you can't look at time as static, right? And can't look at the scenario now as static. Take a look at what happened with AI. Like when this boom came, all of a sudden all startup pitches have AI. All, even listed companies, meetings and notes and reports, everything has AI now. It's the mention of AI has gone up like 10x. So in the moment in time that we are now, and we were during the past like 2-3 years, I agree with you. Like it needs to be, and I wouldn't agree that it needs to be a little bit better. It needs to be like 10x better for people to take that jump. But hopefully, right, once we start getting more mass adoption, once we have a more stabilized market, once we have a more institutional approach to this, I tend to think that the narrative kind of shifts and people start having an easier, case to make of using a crypto-backed product or a blockchain-backed product.
This is why I think the supply constraints in the semiconductor example is useful, because you're getting to the point where you basically have two alternatives. Either A, you just get in the queue at NVIDIA and you wait 18 months for your chips to show up, or you use this like experimental new decentralized GPU network.
Exactly.
And those are the only two options. So it's like, what do you got to lose with that?
Right? It's about democratization, right? In this specific case, when you have a severe constraint on capacity of production, it's not a regular market. Right? There's only 4 foundries in the world that can produce chipsets, and among them, maybe only 1 can produce super high-end, latest architecture chipsets. You don't have only NVIDIA. You forgot about Samsung. You forgot about Qualcomm. You forgot about Apple. Those guys, I can guarantee they are in front of you in the queue. So how you unlock the access to regular people, regular science, or even people on this side, for example, right? That this is an amazing way to finance medical research that the big pharmas, they don't see value in that because it's not economically viable, right? Some of these biologies, you need to run simulations on that, and only AI stuff to train, but run simulations, and you need high capacity for that. Right? So democratizing access to such computation, power of computation, is super important for these low bottom end people start having access to such markets, right? And I would see that blockchain brings this bottom up approach, right? While AI, in certain aspects, it's getting centralization of economic power, because you need to have huge capacity, financial capacity, to have your AI properly trained right now, especially if you're having a sophisticated LLM model with billions of parameters to tune. There is no service, for example, in South America that can handle that. Right? But if you decentralize and have access to all this idle capacity they have in the world, and a protocol that can handle such asynchronous training, that could be magic. And together with that financialization, right, adding a layer of incentives alignments, and can even generate byproducts on that through programming, right? Especially because that's what tokenization and financialization allows. I think would be a fantastic step. and moreover allowed us to buy video games with an excuse that we are supporting with the centralized network. And so I would see if that sticks with Julia.
Yeah. No, I would say like more broadly zooming in out, like it's like blockchain is software, right? And software is meant to be, is meant to optimize stuff, make things more efficient or more safe or more, to increase the network effect of things. And I think that for crypto and blockchains are software that's optimized for security, right? But what I think is like there's such a wide range of mental models in crypto that can bring other stuff together with the security. And to your point, I agree 100% with you, Aaron. Like, it has to be better in a sense. It has to be more incentives aligned, in case of Helium, just said, or it has to be safer. It has to be permissionless and less constrained. In the case of BRX chain or Kona Finance, cheaper, like comparing to a legacy structure. So I mean, it has to be better, and it is being better. It has its caveats. It's not, it's such a big topic, right? Blockchain is hard to kind of summarize, but I couldn't agree more with you. Like, it has to be better in a sense. At least one thing should be like better than we had. That's what software is about.
Great. So we're winding up our time here. ETH Denver, Brazil Crypto Roundtable. Really appreciate having you guys here, sharing some thoughts, sharing some ideas here. Let's maybe just take like 30 seconds and go around the hall here, around the room, and let's get like any kind of final thoughts or anything that you wanted to share earlier that maybe you missed out on. But this is your final chance. Like, maybe João, any final thoughts from you on what's going on here at ETH Denver?
I'm just gonna go back to the point where, like I started in my intro, we need to be aware of the point in time we are now, especially in the Brazilian ecosystem. Like, people need to understand that this type of opportunity doesn't happen every day. And it's not every day that, trillion-dollar industries get disrupted. And it's during these shifts in infrastructure and technologies that we see the opportunity for people to go in, build good things that interact with real use cases. And in Brazil, we have that slot in time now. So I think it's, again, like the job you're doing, with the podcast and spreading the word on this, I think it's extremely important to make people understand, like, where we are now in Brazil is an extremely important place and time.
It's a generational opportunity, right? It's very rare, and I would say more than $1 trillion market might
Much more.
disrupt, right? It's really a revolutionary technology. And indeed resonating with João around the work that you do and Brazilian Journal and your podcast. It's fantastic to bring this awareness to Brazil market that traditionally we think that we can't be in the edge, right? Because we are not a super developed market, but I would say in a lot of aspects we are in front of a lot of people, and we need to internalize that and see that we have capacity, people capable of deploying, right? And manpower, brains, and a lot of opportunities. I would say the government, it's feeding back this revolution. It's very rare you see a central bank and a Brazilian SEC so well aligned on something and trying to bring that responsibility to markets. So it's a great time to be in blockchain. A great time to be out.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, like what I find always super interesting when I travel is, like, as João said, many people are not really aware about what's going on in Brazil, but people like Brazil. So once you tell you're Brazilian and you start to tell how things are evolving over there, we're going to have a CBDC. The biggest bank in Latam has a lot of investments in crypto already. The biggest investment bank has even their own exchange. The Brazilian stock exchange has now a spin-off for offering blockchain related services. And people just got shocked and confused, but happy, that there is somewhere in the world that things are, going on. So it's just exciting. And I would just reinforce what the guys just said. Like, super important to have also this content talking about Brazil, but in English also for achieving a broader audience. And thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Amazing. Well, thanks everyone for listening and watching today. See you at ETH Denver next year, hopefully.